So thank you. So as are we rolling? Rolling?
Yeah.
As Chaim introduced me, my name is Gidon Ariel, and I will introduce myself some more. But first, I will ask you all to introduce yourselves. Where you are from? Is this your first time in Israel? And let's start with that, and whatever happens after that. And where you're from, right? Yeah. So you're Tinke.
Tinke, I'm from the Netherlands and I've been in Israel about 10 times.
Wow. Where in the Netherlands?
The Galilee of the Netherlands, the northeast
Is there like a
countryside.
well-known city or something near you?
Hoogveen.
Sorry?
Hoogveen.
Hoogveen.
Do you know it?
No. But it sounds pretty Jewish. And you're Walter, right?
I'm Walter. My wife and I have been here. This is our third time. We've spent, in 5 years, we've spent over a year total. And we're from Canada. So
You're from the Vancouver side.
well, we're only 24 hours drive from Vancouver.
So you're right next door.
Yeah, we're right next door.
That means you're further
East,
east. Okay.
yes.
So you're north of. You told
North
me. I think
Dakota,
it's-
Montana, that border right there.
Yeah,
We're just north
between
of
North
there.
Dakota and Montana.
Yeah,
Perfect place to be.
that's right.
And how long have you been here this time?
We came in October of last year.
Stick around. And you're based here.
Yes.
In Big
Yes,
Sur.
yes.
What do you call this place?
We call this the family house.
The family house.
Yes.
And so if I will tell anybody, hey, how is it in the families? They'll all say obviously. Or that's what you call it. All right. We'll ask everybody also, what do you call this place?
Yeah, I'm interested.
Because it's got about 15 names.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Walter. And who did you say you come with?
My wife, but she's in the kitchen.
She's in the kitchen. Good
Yeah.
place for a wife. Very good. Where did that come from? It came because I like to get smiles and laughs out of people, of course. And oh, hello, Laura. Laura and Craig, right? Carl. Okay, shalom, shalom. Have a seat. We'll get up to you. We're just introducing ourselves. This is Tanke, Tinka, and Walter. And now we're up to
I'm Marga.
Marga, like Margalit,
Yeah. And I'm from the Netherlands.
also.
And this is my
Near Ochenfochen?
No, it's Veldhoven.
Veldhoven, okay.
Veldhoven.
Veldhoven. I prefer Bach myself, but if you like Veldhoven, then it's fine. Very nice.
And it's my third time. And
Also, every time here in the family house.
No. The first 2 times, the first one was a round tour. It's about 30 and something more years ago. And then the second one was 30 years ago, and I went to Eilat.
To where?
Eilat.
Eilat.
To Jordan, Petra.
Yes. A short trip.
Yeah.
So,
And
2
now-
times 30 years ago?
Yeah.
And now you remembered, wow, I just remembered. Israel, yeah, okay. I'm sure that you.
Something happened in between, so I couldn't come. But now it's the right time.
You can say that. You can say that again. It's the right time to come to Israel right now. That is a sentence you can put on a bumper sticker, don't you think? It's evergreen. And thank you, Marga. And you are?
Goshen.
Hoshen.
Goshen.
Now,
Whatever.
is that your Hebrew name?
No, it's a Dutch name. It's a Frisian name from Friesland. I'm
Friesland?
born in Friesland. It's a part of Holland.
Friesland is part of Holland.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm living in Groningen. It's another part.
Let's get back to Hoshen a second. So is that like spelt in English H maybe with a dot underneath Oshen?
Without the N.
Hoshe.
Goshen.
Hoshe.
Yes.
He says Hoshen, doesn't he? Anyway, do you know what a Hoshen is?
Is it
The breastplate of the breastplate of the high priest, and no less importantly, it is the name of my grandson,
Wow.
Hoshen, isn't it?
Wow.
I think. I got 9 of them, and it was a long drive. He's got 2 names, and for some reason it's not gonna. No, it's not. No. Take that back. My grandson's name is Chesed Ranein.
Wow.
But Choshen is a nice name. Maybe my 10th will be Choshen. Who knows? I have another friend whose son is Choshen, so it works. And that grandson, Chesed Ranein, is dressed up as the high priest today. Today, as you know, is not Purim, but it's 2 days before Purim. So the whole country is dressing up their little kids in their costumes. So my grandson Chesed Ranein dressed up as the high priest with a choshen, and he's very cute. If you behave nicely, I'll show you his picture with his choshen. Okay, thank you, Jose.
I was here, I think 43 years ago. Also in this time of the year in the kibbutz.
Which one? You remember?
Yeah, Givat Haim.
What?
Givat Haim.
Shivat Chaim? Maybe?
Something like that. It's between Gadera and Netanya. But anyway.
Okay, there's a place called Gan Chaim over there, but maybe another one something else. Okay.
But anyway, I remember that it was Purim. And I thought it's like Carnival, we call it Carnival. But it's interesting, I'm now here.
Did anybody here never hear of Purim before today? You've heard of it.
I've been here in Israel.
I know, but I asked, did anybody not hear of it? I asked, did anybody not hear of it? Okay, but you wanted so much to raise your hand. Okay, we'll get to you in a minute. Thank you, Choshen. And you are?
Yolanda,
Yolanda.
yes. For now it's my 4th time here in Israel and the 3rd time since the war. So,
The 5th time since the war?
3rd,
The 3rd time since the war.
yes.
So you came twice before the war, and you went back and forth since the war. You said the 4th time? 5th time?
Once I was in Israel with my family, before the war, and after the war, now it's my 3rd time.
3rd time.
Yes, I was in the Negev to help with the farmers.
Just 1 second. Once before the war,
Yes,
and then since the war, another 2 times.
yeah. And now it's the 3rd.
Now it's your 3rd time.
Yes,
That's right. And, okay, very good.
yes.
And again, is this your first time in Beit Zera?
This place is my first time.
How did you find out about Beit Zera? How did you find out about all the things that these places
Oh,
called?
She's guilty.
Okay. So we'll talk to you a
Actually,
little
I
bit more.
met Chaim in the Netherlands, and that was my first connection with this Ariel Return Center. And I'm involved with the organization Nachamu Ami. And we
In the Netherlands.
Yes, and we send furniture and clothes, and I'm involved in that.
Thank you.
Since when I met Chaim, the connection
It gets stronger. Yes.
Yes.
Very good. I think I've heard of that organization Nachamu Ami from the Netherlands. Whenever I get a hint that something pro-Israel and Christian is passing my Google, then I look it up. So I think I've been through it over there. Okay, and if any of you don't know Laura, here is Laura Densmore. Introduce yourself, Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura, and this is my 8th time to Israel, but my first time since the war began. I was here in the spring of 2023, just prior to the war. But I've known Gidon for a couple of years. We've worked on
More
some
than a couple.
Yeah, a few years, and we've worked on some projects together. And
I believe at least 6 years.
yes, yes.
Probably more.
This is my second time to Beit Zera, and how I got to know about this place is I saw Chaim Mailspin participate in a joint Jewish-Christian prayer event that was like within a week or 2 of when October 7th happened. And it was
Afterwards.
televised, and I thought, wow, this is awesome. And so he got on my radar scope, and then I became aware of the Aliyah Return Center, and then I started following his daily YouTube postings of what's going on with the war. And then I connected with him when we had a special prayer event at Hanukkah, which you were part of, and so was he. And every day, it was the 8 days of prayer for Israel during the 8 days of Hanukkah, and every day was a special focused prayer theme. And the last day, the culmination was to pray for the bridge between Jews and Christians to widen and strengthen and deepen, and you and Bob were part of that. And Chaim prayed, he did his little thing when we prayed for the IDF, he covered that.
That's fine.
So that's how I kind of know
Thank you. And where are you from?
Oregon, the Oregon
Wow.
coast, Florence.
Yes.
And I'm also part of Church on the Rock, and Pastor Carl Palinkas, who will introduce himself in a moment. He's my pastor.
Oh, how nice. Thank you, Laura. And we're up to
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth.
I'm from the Netherlands, and this is my second time in Israel. And the first time we wanted to go, we were preparing a journey for the first time to Israel, was on October 7th, 2023.
You were planning on arriving on that day.
Yeah,
Early in the morning.
early in the morning. But then we said, no, we cannot go now.
Wait a second.
Yeah,
You were planning on leaving early in the morning.
leaving early.
No, booking the flight.
Booking the
Booking
flight,
the flight
yeah.
on
Booking
October
the flight
7th.
on October 7th.
Your flight was booked, or you were planning?
Planning.
We were-
Planning.
In other words, on October 7th, you said, let's plan a flight this morning.
Yes.
And so you
That was the thing.
Googled Israel, and the war came up
The war.
instead of
And then we
the.
said, no, it's not
not
sensible to do so now, but
You've been holding your breath since then.
we were really struck by
All that had
all
happened.
that happened in the time, and we said, okay, this and also by the reaction of the world and of the very bad things that happened, of course. But we said soon after that, we said, when we go, we don't want to go to sightseeing and things in Israel, but then we want to help. So we came up with Christians for Israel, and in March, a year ago exactly, we went for the first time to Israel,
Wow.
and we did volunteering work there. And now this is the second time, but the first time here.
Very nice.
So
And you all came more or less at the same time, right?
Yeah, the
I
five-
mean, most of you.
Dutch group,
Yeah.
The Dutch group. So how long is the Dutch group in here now?
9 days.
Since
9 days. And I think you said
We will be there here 9 days.
you'll be here 9 days.
And Sunday we will leave.
Sunday. Okay. Well, unless anybody misplaces their passports. Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth. And you are
Renee.
Renee. You guys go together.
We go
Yeah.
together for more than 40 years. The
Wow.
40th anniversary is next Shabbat.
Okay. Mazal tov. Very, very nice.
Yep. And all that she said now counts for me as well. So that's.
I was going to ask if she forgot anything, but they never do. All right.
Right.
Thank you, Renee. And here is Carl.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be with y'all. My name is Carl Palinkas, and like she said, I'm a pastor of a church in Florence, Oregon. But we have a ministry called Zechariah's Hope, and the Lord kind of, He created that, gave it to me starting in 2006. For about 10 years, we cleaned and painted bomb shelters in the city of Kiryat Shmona, and the emphasis was on that. And then during that time, we just developed a relationship with Mizgavam. And now we have 2 apartments. And
Which is a kibbutz near Kiryat Shmona.
It's to the northwest, and it's the northernmost kibbutz in Israel. It looks down on Metula, and it looks directly down into Lebanon, which up until recently was infested with Hezbollah. And now all of those dwellings, you can't really call them homes, but the structures are flattened. And we're very glad about that because we knew that they were just bases for Hezbollah. And but we have a prayer site, we have a prayer amphitheater that we constructed there, and we have a volunteer team there right now cleaning it up and making it nice again because it was neglected for about 16 months during the war.
Mizgavam.
Yes, at Mizgavam. So it's a great place to pray. It's a great place to, at that specific location, you can't say Jesus was here or anything happened here, but you could look at Matthew 15.
You can't say he wasn't.
Verdad, true. Now the thing is you could look across to the regions of Tyre and Sidon, and you can see where Jesus would have went for Matthew 15. You can look across for Matthew 16 at Caesarea Philippi, and of course, I'm of the opinion that Jesus conducted his staff meeting called the Mount of Transfiguration with his 2 department heads on Mount Hermon. So I'm stuck on that. And I don't welcome any disagreement with that. But,
My story, and I'm sticking
challenge
to
you,
it.
But anyway, so the team is up there right now cleaning, and
How big is your team?
8.
a total of 8 people. Chris and Amber, they live there. We just got a new apartment there, and it's
In
it's
Misgavam.
new for us in Misgavam. Now the people have been, as you might know, this is the first time in Misgavam's history that the people were evacuated during a war, because during all the other wars they didn't do that. They were just so tough. But because of the nature of October 7th, it was about a week or 10 days later that the government said everybody needs to, and all these people were displaced. And we were displaced with them, but I was there for the month of October and into November.
23?
Running around doing
23.
things in northern Israel. Well, I slept, like in the command bunker with the guys for the first, after the evacuation, because they're my close friends, and God blessed us with the privilege to be able to acquire a bunch of needed material for the security team, and then we just kind of participated in the Northwest border-wide program of providing food for the soldiers. Anyway, there's just so many things that, our ministry and so many other ministries, but the nation just stepped up to take care of their soldiers, as you know, and we just got to be very happy to be a tiny part of that. But March 1st, the people were allowed to return to their homes. And so we actually went back February 1st and
Went back.
to Misgavam. So the whole northern border area was kind of like military only, and people couldn't, the residents were still displaced all over, Europe and all over Israel. But
Europe?
but then I thought that we were supposed to be able to go back February 1st. So I showed up February 1st with a couple of my buddies, and then they said, no, it's supposed to be March 1st, but you can stay here anyway. So because, there was just about 4 people on the kibbutz, and then there was us. So it was kind of like a ghost town, like a ghost kibbutz for a while, but we did our work and we got our other apartments, and then we made things ready for the other volunteers. And
Well, thank you.
and now we're That's my cue to stop talking again.
Yes, sir.
That was the
I
prayer
probably did
list
that.
for the
Yeah,
IDF
I
that just
probably
landed
did that.
on your head.
The whiteboard was falling asleep. No, just kidding.
Yes. Thank God it was only the whiteboard.
Yes.
Thank you very, very much,
exactly.
Carl, and I'm looking forward to spending more time with you as well.
Oh, wow.
And last but not least, we have,
How could I top that?
yeah,
My name is Sharon, and I'm here from the States. Lived in Texas the last couple of years.
we're in Texas.
Around Dallas, north of Dallas, and Garland, and
Garland.
and
I'm a,
Rockwall, actually.
I'm an honorary Texan, an honorary Dallas area.
I thought I heard that accent there.
I wish.
But Rockwall is pretty close to where
Right.
I've been, which Rockwall and the Red Heifers, they come
Ah,
from there.
Oh,
I didn't know that. Okay.
So that was kind of interesting to find out. But
When I hear north of Dallas, I think of McKinney and Melissa.
yeah, exactly.
Of course, Richardson.
Plano, McKinney.
And how long have you been in, or what are you
Over
doing
here?
here?
I've one of those, you have Israel on your heart and you know it's home, and if you've never, people would ask me if I've ever been there, and I said not in my body.
So this is your first bodily trip to
Yes,
Israel?
I've been
Wow.
here was a week now.
And based here in the space?
Yes, here, and through the art. I'll be here through May 29th, and it's quite a
So
privilege.
that's through Yom HaAtzmaut
Uh-huh.
and maybe even Yom Yerushalayim. I'm not sure. We have to figure out what the.
It would be a very great privilege to find one of those doors for Aliyah, and I will see what.
Find one of those doors.
Yeah, because I've worked with or gone through looking into a Jewish agency before.
Oh, yourself.
Yes.
Oh, good luck with that.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's why I put it that way. So, if that didn't, since that didn't because I was foolish enough to mention something about,
A certain-
actually it wasn't, because I had done some missions in Latvia a few years ago. And of course, they look you up, and even though I hadn't done anything in that realm for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, they still determined that I was dangerous to come.
I don't know if you're dangerous.
I
Anyway,
mean, because I had Christian in my background.
yes, that's not dangerous. That's just.
Well, to them, it was like
No, I would call it dangerous. I would call it just not according to the rules.
unacceptable.
Yeah, okay, let's say that.
To them.
Anyway, getting back to acceptable land, thank you very much. Oh,
Sharon.
Sharon, what's your last name?
Jerome Ellenberg.
Nice to meet you, and nice to meet you all. And like I said, my name is Gidon Ariel, and I've been in Israel for about 47 years, I think. That sounds right, yeah. And I will commence to tell you a little bit of my story, and then we'll see what happens. And especially, I like to field questions and comments from you all, because that way, every time I meet with somebody, it's a little bit different. But before I begin, who's in charge of filling up my water?
I can do that.
Okay. That took about 10 minutes. So every 10 minutes, bring me some more water.
Set my alarm here.
So I was born in New York, in a Jewish community, and of course that's like basically saying the same thing. New York and a Jewish community. But it was an Orthodox Jewish community, but in the 60s and 70s, that didn't really mean that all of the members of the community were Orthodox. Orthodoxy was not at an all-time low in America at that time, but it was definitely not the strongest of the different kinds of Judaism that you could have. And so people, the synagogues and the communities, as they say, they took what they could get. So my family, for example, was a member of an Orthodox synagogue, but we drove to the synagogue, or we went to I went to a Jewish day school. Thank you very much. And but I would take my thank you. I would take my kippah, my skull cap, or whatever you call it, my yarmulke, out of my pocket in the morning if I didn't forget it, and put it right back as soon as the school day had ended. And I wasn't alone like that. It was most of my classmates were like that until 5th grade, when my parents told me, listen, you're going to stop going to the Jewish day school this year, and you're going to go to public school. So that shocked me, because I was used to my friends. You know, we're talking about a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, something like that, and that wasn't the kind of thing that we like to do so much. But it happened. I went to public school around the corner for a year. Many of my classmates there were also Jewish, but it wasn't the same thing. And I went back to the Jewish day school at the end of that year, and that was first of all, I decided at that time that I was going to pay more attention to my Jewish identity. Pretty much like you don't know what you've got till it's gone, right? So I said, okay, if my parents certainly didn't want to take away my Jewish identity, but there was a certain measure of distancing me from it by leaving a Jewish day school and going to a public school. And so I said, okay, I'm going to push back against that and focus on my own Jewish identity. And since then, I was a much more identifying Jew, I guess you can say that. Also, many people use the term Baal Tshuva, someone who repents, not necessarily doing something horrible, but simply not following the laws of the Jewish rules, the Jewish laws, and all of that comes with it. And I decided I'm all in. I was also very lucky that year that I was introduced to a religious Zionist youth movement by the name of Bnei Akiva, and it is a worldwide movement, and it introduced me to the 5 loves of my life. They are the God of Israel, the people of Israel, the Torah of Israel, the land of Israel, and the state of Israel. Now, one of these things is not exactly like the other, and that, of course, is the state of Israel, because the state of Israel has been around at that time barely for 30 years. And by now, okay, it's already up to about 75 years. But even still, compare that to the Torah and the people of Israel, which is about 4,000 years, and the God of Israel, you can't even count. So even still, I was very grateful that I was exposed to the importance of the state of Israel, because I think that it is extremely important in our time. It is what differentiates us in our time, in these last days, from all of the history of the Jewish people, even in their exile. The fact is that there were Jews living in the land of Israel all throughout these thousands of years since the second exile, about 2,000 years ago. But that was nothing compared to the state of Israel, which created a place that Jews run their own lives with and without the help of others. With the help of others and without everybody else to not help. That's a little bit of an understatement. So that was very fascinating for me. So much. Wait a second. You wanted to say something or ask a question?
Yeah, are you married?
I am married.
Because
Okay.
you said the biggest loss of your life and your wife wasn't in there.
That's true. Of course. Thank you very much. He's paying attention. My loves of my life. As I mentioned, I have a grandchild. So, and I have 9 of them, and 5 children, and my wife Deborah. We've been married now for about 35 years, something like that, maybe 25. I don't know. Ever since I got married, I don't wear a watch and don't look at a calendar. But
It's being recorded.
all right, I'm really putting my foot in it today. My wife Deborah just, as a matter of fact, I think today is her birthday, but her English birthday. What's today's date? The 12th. I think it's the 12th, maybe it's the 11th, something like that. But her Hebrew birthday, the 7th day of the month of Adar, was last week. And we had a surprise birthday party for her. We invited we didn't invite all of the children and their spouses, those who were married, and the grandchildren, I guess, didn't participate too much in the planning. They're the oldest is 6, the youngest is about 6 months or something like that, 4 months. But it was lovely, and thank you, of course, for remembering that. But I'm still up to the part that I'm only in 7th grade, so I'm not up to that yet. So much so that I
New York
love
City.
in Queens, in New York City, and so much so that I love B'nai Akiva that I spent more time in the youth club that I did in my own home. And I went back, as I said, to the Jewish day school, but when I went to high school in 9th grade, it wasn't such a great school. And my parents and I sat down to decide what I would do for 10th grade, and they said, have you ever thought of going to Israel? And had I ever thought of going to Israel? I was thinking about it for at least 3 years at that point. And so I jumped at the chance. And I came to Israel, and of course, I don't have to tell anybody in this room how wonderful it was. And not only did I come to Israel, but I went to a yeshiva, which is a school of, well, it means different things to different people. The day school that I went to is often also called the yeshiva in America, even though the kids there, they barely know the shapes of the Hebrew letters. So at this yeshiva, it was a high school yeshiva, but we would get up at about 7 o'clock and pray. Then we would have breakfast. It was a dorm school. Then we would study the Talmud, the Torah, from probably about 9 till 1. And then we would do our secular studies, math and history and chemistry and all sorts of stuff like that, until I would guess from 1 till about 6. Then we would have a break for about an hour till about 7, and then 7 till 8:30 we would have another Talmud study session. Has anybody ever, you ain't heard nothing yet, has anybody here ever not heard of the Talmud? It's called also the Gemara, and I'll try to make this short, even though it's thousands of years worth of ideas. The Torah, the 5 books of Moses, and the Tanakh, just happen to have a copy of one right here, there it is Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, Tanakh. Tanakh stands for Ta-na-ch, Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, and of course that is the 5 books of Moses, the Torah, the Pentateuch, the Nevi'im are the prophets, and the Ketuvim are the writings. And altogether they make up the Jewish scriptures, and together with the Torah at Mount Sinai, the written Torah, Genesis through Deuteronomy, the oral Torah, some of you might have heard of that also, and that is a very important part of the Jewish people's perspective on Torah, and really their perspective on their relationship with God. Because God basically said, listen, I'm giving you the Torah, the written one, but first of all, you should know that it is a ongoing conversation with me. This is not just a book that you put on the shelf, and if you're lucky, you don't have to dust it off too much. This is something that I want you to learn, to study, to incorporate in your lives, and to engage with me through. And the way that happened is, besides certain aspects of the written Torah that are only understandable with traditions that must have been given to the Jewish people when they got the Bible, the Torah, on Mount Sinai. For example, it says, you shall keep the Sabbath as I have commanded you. But this is the first time in the written Torah that God is commanding us to keep the Shabbat. So what does that mean? It means that we understand that together with that written Torah came an unwritten Torah that was just passed from teacher to student, from parent to child, ever since then. Around the time of Jesus, about 100 years or so afterwards, a certain rabbi by the name of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi decided that there were tremendously difficult times that the Jewish people were going through. So he said, even though we were commanded not to write down this oral Torah, he said there's a verse in Psalms, I'm pretty sure it's in 119, Eit lasot laHashem heferu Toratecha, which means there is a time, a time to do for God. They have gone against your Torah. So I think that the simple meaning of that verse is, it is a time to do for God when others have gone against your Torah. In other words, to fight for God and His Torah. Make sense? But the way that the rabbis understand that verse is, it is a time to do for God. There's something that demands some sort of action by the Jewish people, and therefore, therefore we are commanded, as it were, to break the Torah. It's a little hard to wrap your head around this. In other words, there's such an emergency case that we put aside the regular rules and we go according to the emergency rules. So the emergency rule was to write down the unwritten Torah, which up until then the ruling was, don't write it down. And thankfully, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, took all of those oral, non-written down concepts and put them into a written format called the Mishnah. And then everybody started studying that instead of just the text of the Torah, the Tanakh, and these by heart ideas. That those by heart ideas were already written down and codified in the Mishnah. So people started studying them also for a few hundred years, and then about 500 A.D. CE, right? They somebody else decided, Ravina and Ravashi decided it's time to put into writing, to record all of those discussions. And that is the Talmud. If the Mishnah is about, each Mishnah is a sentence or two. And each chapter of the Mishnah is on the average, 10 Mishnahs. And each book of the Mishnahs is about 10 chapters. And there are about 10 books in each. We call them an order. And there are 6 orders. So that means, you catch that? In other words, if you're going to look for Mishnah, you're going to find 6 volumes. In each volume, there will be 10 short books. In each one of those short books, there are 10 chapters. In each one of those chapters, there are 10 sentences. So that's why they're short chapters. But altogether, it's about 6,000 of those Mishnayot. The Talmud came along and discussed every one of those Mishnayot and every one of those books. So there are about 60 of those books of the Talmud. You catching it? So it's an encyclopedic work. And that is unquestionably the most important book, I call it a book, it's an encyclopedia of Jewish study to this day. When it started, probably before it was even in written format. But by now, for sure, if you are a serious Jewish student, that means you are studying the Talmud. So much so that Talmud has about 2,700 two-sided pages. So that comes out to about 5,400 pages in that encyclopedia. By the way, it's not just that. I didn't bring along a sample. I wonder if you have. I have to remember. I think every time I come here, I think every time I come here, I say I have to bring you guys a sample of the Talmud so I can show it to you when I come and speak. It includes the text of the Talmud in the middle with Rashi, who was the number one commentary. He was about 1,000 years ago, I think, and the Tosfot, who were his grandchildren and their generation, on the other side. And in the back, there's probably about 2 or 3 dozen commentaries throughout the centuries, and that's what goes into the standard version of the Talmud, which was first printed in Vilna a few hundred years ago. But any rabbi who considers himself worth much, he will write a commentary on the Talmud as well. So we're talking about an entire library. And so that is what we studied in high school. We really started studying in like 6th grade, but we didn't really know which side to hold the book from. But in Israel, they knew what they were talking about.
6th grade, what age is that?
6th grade is about 10 years old. Yeah, that is the traditional time to start studying the Talmud. When I finished high school, I continued on to a Hesder yeshiva. The word Hesder means arrangement. It's an arrangement with the IDF. Instead of doing your regular 3 years, at that time it was a 3-year stint in the army, you did 5 years. But instead of doing 5 years of active duty, we did only 1.5 years and 3.5 years of full-time yeshiva. That means, first of all, no secular studies, math and sciences in the afternoon, but in the afternoon we're learning the Talmud and other kinds of Torah studies as well. The Bible we would study, the Jewish philosophy, all sorts of stuff. But our prayer started at 6 a.m. instead of at 7 a.m. And at night, 8:30, that was for that's kid stuff. We would study until 10:30. So we took a break in the afternoon, lunch and prayers, of course, but we were studying full time from about 7 o'clock in the morning till about 10:30 at night. For about 3.5 years. But I went to the army after about a half a year. I remember when I first got to the yeshiva, I said, oh my, I don't think I can make it all the way to 10:30 at night. So I said, I'll take it little by little. So I said, first I'll study only till 8:30. And then I'll study till 9. So by the time I went to the army, about a half a year after I started, I maybe made it up to 10:30, maybe up to 10, I don't remember. And I flopped into bed. Then I went to the army. Anybody here who's been to the military, you know, they really run you ragged. So I came back to the yeshiva after about 9 months. We split the army service up. I said, okay, 10:30, that's nothing. I would only sleep for 6 hours in the army, no problem. So I first of all started studying at 10:30, no problem. Then after a few weeks, I said, come on, I need another study partner. So I found somebody. We studied until 11:30. And then after a while, I said, this is kid stuff. Let's see if I can make it till midnight. And then I said, wait a second. I don't want to be late for the morning services. So I'll make a study partner. Most of our studies we did with a study partner before morning services. So instead of showing up at 6 o'clock, let's get there at 5:30 and do a half hour or something. So I was studying for most of my time in yeshiva after I got back from my first stint in the army, probably from 6, maybe even 5:30 till 11:30, 12. And I wasn't the only one. There were times where I said, okay, I'm making a challenge for myself. I'm going to be the first one in the study hall in the morning. I'll make sure I'll get there even at 5 or maybe even before 5. And I'll be the last one out. I got a study partner till I think 1 or maybe even 2 o'clock. That didn't last for long, but I could say that I turned off the lights and I turned on the lights in the morning. So that was Torah study for us. And to this day, I'm very pleased that I'm studying a page of the Talmud every day, together with hundreds of thousands of Jews and I would guess at least a few dozen Christians. I know a few who are trying to study now. It is translated into English in a few different translations. It is it's not always easy, but it's worth it. And so that is my love affair with the Torah. And when I was either on a furlough from the army, or maybe I was going to Jerusalem on a Friday or something like that from yeshiva, I was walking down the street and I saw a sign on an apartment building, and I crossed the street to read that sign. You know, it's my hobby to read the signs in Jerusalem. You know, you can get a degree in Jewish history just by reading the street signs in Jerusalem. But this is not a street sign. It was the sign of the office of the ICEJ, the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
I know, yeah.
And I was surprised because, wait a second. Jerusalem, okay, that's Jewish. That's the Jewish people. Embassy means friendship. But Christian, doesn't that mean anti-Semitism? So how are these Christians really talking about friendship with Jews? So I walked inside, knocked on the door. The receptionist said, can I help you? I said, no, just browsing. I picked up a few brochures and I took a look at them. I said, wow, these people are sincere about their love for the Jewish people and for the state of Israel. And that simply blew my mind. Because I had never, to the best of my memory, I didn't really experience anti-Semitism growing up in the United States. Certainly not in Israel, but it was just something that we had in our veins. You know, we didn't have to talk about the Holocaust because when I went to the synagogue, half of the adults in my synagogue had a number on their arms. My father, as I said, was a survivor from Hungary in the Holocaust. I'm a second-degree Holocaust survivor, second generation, and there are at least two kinds of second-generation Holocaust survivors. those who remember every single word of every single story of their parent, and those of us who goes in one ear and out the other. And I just can't retain anything. So that's me. Luckily, my brother is the other kind. So again, and there are two different kinds of Holocaust survivors. Those that tell the story all the time, and those who don't talk about it at all. So I think that my father was maybe somewhere in the middle, but it's hard for me to tell because I can't remember any time that he actually told stories. But that wasn't just me. It wasn't even people who were second generation Holocaust survivors, because this was our community. And if it was the Holocaust, it was the Crusades, it was the Spanish Inquisition. It was all our history. Even if we quit school, if we didn't go to class during history, we knew this, and we didn't even have to talk about it. It was just there. So to discover Christians who were, first of all, recognizing that history and saying, we're very sorry for that history, and that is not us. We are here to establish relationships with Jews. We are here to make friends with Jews. We're here because we love Jews. That is something that really, of course, probably existed throughout the centuries, but barely enough to make the radar of Jewish and Christian history. But more so, especially since the founding of the State of Israel, which is what I mentioned before. And certainly since the liberation of Jerusalem in 1967. So that is when many of us Jews said, wow, God is doing something. Well, guess what? You don't have to be Jewish to read the Bible and to say, wow, these were promises that God made 4,000 years ago, and now they are coming true word for word.
Yes.
So how can anybody see that, read that, recognize that, and just stay adish, just say, yeah, okay, next page, let's do something else, what's on TV tonight? So that is why, as soon as I learned that kind of stuff in summer camp, I said, wow, I want to be part of that. I remember some of the things that my teachers in summer camp, some of whom were barely 3 or 4 years older than me, taught. One thing that comes to mind happened not far from here, in Bikat Arbel. Anybody here ever heard of Arbel? Yeah, okay, because it's on the other side of Tiberias. If you go a bit north from here, maybe 7 kilometers, you're in Tiberias. All of Tiberias is maybe 3, 4, 5 kilometers, something like that. And another 2, 3 kilometers is Arbel. Arbel is a mountain that is like a cliff, and it's next to a valley. And that valley is called Bikat Arbel. And, pardon me? Oh, I'm doing okay. You're off the hook for a while. And the story is told in a midrash that 4 rabbis were walking through Bikat Arbel, and they saw the sunrise. Just when I say sunrise, what do you think of? Like the sun just starting. I'm talking about Ayelet HaShachar, which means dawn or pre-dawn even. That you just are starting to tell the difference, because it's just starting to get a tiny bit light, if you know what to look for, in the east. And then it gets a little bit brighter. And then it gets a little bit brighter. So the rabbi said, this is the nature of the redemption of Israel. That it gets little by little stronger and stronger, but the more time passes, the stronger and stronger it gets. In other words, it's the speed goes faster and faster and faster. Interestingly enough, I'm not going to quote it right now, but they bring 4 verses in the book of Esther to show how at the beginning there wasn't so much redemption going on, then a little bit more redemption, then a lot more redemption, and finally a great, tremendous redemption. Oh God, I'm sure I don't have to tell you about the story of Esther, where not even overnight, in 1 second, things turned from terror to tremendous redemption. That is an example of redemption, and that is the redemption that we see in our time. And I was taught when I was like in 7th or 8th grade or something like that. And I remember seeing a poster, a famous poster. You can probably find it on the internet. If not, ask me about it. I'll find it myself and I'll send it to you. Those 4 rabbis that were walking through Bikat Arbel, and they saw the dawn, and just before sunrise, they were depicted in this, I'm getting the chills, they were depicted in this poster as IDF soldiers with IDF uniforms and a hat, and they were not rabbis. There are plenty of IDF soldiers who are rabbis, but the fact that God, through the IDF, is redeeming the Jewish people in the state of Israel. When I say redeeming, I mean bringing us towards the final redemption, the end times. That's the way we religious Zionists, one way of pigeonholing us, see it. That a mere 80 years ago was the depths of horror of the Jewish people, the Holocaust. And yet a mere 5 years later, the state of Israel. And we are now in charge of our own destiny, and we are going to fight for our right to be here. And we're going to win those fights with God's help. Mm-hmm. Tremendous. And then 30 years later, that diamond, that emerald, that we were all hoping for, the city of Jerusalem itself, that we were so close yet so far from it for 30 years. Not a Jewish foot stepped near the Western Wall, near the Temple Mount. Overnight, in 6 days. It's not really in 6 days. Jerusalem was liberated on the 3rd day of the 6 Day War, and we really only started fighting on Jerusalem, I think, on the 2nd day. So, like in 2 days, we captured all of Jerusalem. Incredible. How can anybody not say that God was not a marionetting, but sitting? I don't want to say sitting on the side, but was pushing our soldiers, saying, "This is the time. Now is the time." So I was about 4 years old when Jerusalem was redeemed, when Jerusalem was liberated, and 10 years after that, in Bnei Akiva, every year gets a different name for their group. We call it a shevet, like a tribe. And they decided, whoever they is, that the name of our group, and when I say group, I mean all over the world, that age group, the name of our group would be Ariel. Ariel is one of the 70 names of the city of Jerusalem. It was named for Jerusalem. And there I was, 10 years, I'd never been to Jerusalem, I'd never been to Israel, but I said, wow, I am going to be called on Jerusalem. It just blew my mind. That's why the next year I already moved here. And about 15 years later, I changed my name from Reish to Ariel. I decided that I Hebraicized my name because of that. And that, of course, is what we experience here in Israel. That everywhere you go, you trip on a rock. My gosh, this rock is from 3,000 years ago. What do you know? It's just everything has something to do with the Jewish people's relationship with God through the tools that He decided would be part of that, part and parcel of that relationship. The land of Israel, the state of Israel, the fact that we are pardon the expression, a lamb amongst 70 wolves, but we have God on our side. And that is what has been powering me really all those years. But I was talking about the pro-Israel Christians, And that, like I said, blew my mind. And I started reaching out to more pro-Israel Christian leaders in Jerusalem, the ICEJ I mentioned, Bridges for Peace, Christian Friends of Israel, a few others. And I started meeting with them, and I said, wow, these people are very sincere. And I felt called to engage with these people and to do what I could to provide them with whatever information that I had that they didn't have. I felt that that was what God was mandating the Jewish people for, to tell the world about the God of Israel and his Torah. So that is what I'd been doing pretty much since then. I had a stint working in high tech, but I didn't last too long because this was just much more exciting. About 12 years ago, I was speaking to a group much like yourselves, and I if anybody's heard of Christine Darg, a good friend of mine, her group, and I said, okay, I got a new idea, and she was always happy to hear my new ideas. Every time I spoke to them, I had a new idea. I'm going to, instead of just speaking to you and your groups once or twice a year, maybe to other groups, maybe 4 times a year for an hour and schlepping, how about if I teach Torah on the internet? It'll be an online yeshiva for Christians. And the group gasped and said hallelujah. And one of the men in the group walked up to me and said, I'd like to be your first student. And that was Bob Odell, who became my partner at Root Source. Root-source.com is the platform which we run, we founded for pro-Israel Christians and Jews to engage with each other, primarily by studying the concepts, ideas, and texts that we have in common. It's developed today. We have about 20 Jewish teachers teaching topics such as women in the Bible, Jewish history, the land of Israel, beginner's Hebrew, the book of Proverbs, basically whatever our teachers want to teach. I'm sure we'll find students who want to study it. Each teacher has recorded on the average 50 lessons, so we have over 1,000 recorded lessons. And we've had over 50,000 Christians subscribing to our free newsletter. I hope that at the end of this day it'll be 50,008 or 10 or whatever, however many are. That is much more than I was expecting to talk before I gave you guys to ask your questions that you've been trying to formulate ever since I started talking and before. So thank you very much for that introduction. And now I'm happy to hear whatever questions you might have about me or about what I've spoken about, or what's been on your mind for years and you never had a chance to ask anybody about it. The website is www.root-source.com, but that's sometimes a little bit hard to type, so I would suggest just Googling Root Source. That's root like a tree, source like water, and then it'll come up my website, and then just click through. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you shared about how you studied Talmud from very early in the morning till late at night.
Not just Talmud, there were also
Mishnah and all that.
Mishnah and also Tanakh. I love studying Tanakh, and also books of morality.
Yes.
A lot of stuff like that.
My question is, as you've engaged with Christians and brought this wonderful resource, rootsource.com, a lot of times Christians have questions about the Old Testament, the Tanakh.
Yes.
And so, would you say, how has that, I don't know what I'm trying to ask here.
You're among friends, we'll give you a
Okay. Has it provoked you more to be into the Tanakh, because that's where we're coming from? We're not necessarily Christians, we're not studying the Mishnah, we want to know more about the Old Testament, and we have questions there. So has that provoked you to be, or the teachers that you offer, because does that provoke you more to be more in the Old Testament and to dig into their as well?
I would say no, because I'm already a loving student of the Tanakh.
Okay.
That is, I think, something a little bit new. Because as I said before, the Talmud has been the basic book of study in yeshivot for hundreds and possibly thousands of years.
Yeah.
And the Tanakh had fallen into relative, I wouldn't say disuse, but less studying of it and less orderly studying of it. Because the people said, listen, I listen to the Torah every week. There are the Torah, like I said, 5 books, about 50 weeks in a year. So you divide each book into 10. And so we hear about 1/10 of each book once a week. And every year we go over that. So much of the Torah is already known.
Yes.
And as far as the writings, then the prophets, we also have what's called a Haftorah, which is 1 chapter or so from the prophets, which we add on to the Torah reading every week. So that's about 50 chapters. Okay, there's probably about 300 chapters of the prophets, but 50 is nice also. So that makes us feel that we're okay with the prophets also, and the writings. Okay, so you have the Psalms, which we know a bunch of Psalms, and the scrolls of Esther, of Song of Songs. Those we also read as part of the liturgy once a year each. So we more or less know the Tanakh. But when we came back to the land of Israel and we started walking around and we came to a place like Ein Harod, which is near Afula, which is about a half-hour drive from here. But Ein Harod is where the story of Gideon happened.
Yes.
So you say, wow, this is it. There's the water that he told his 300 men to try to drink from. Wow, like the Bible is coming alive.
Yes.
And other places. So that really, and the Bible, what language is it written in, everybody? Hebrew. Guess what? Hebrew was a dead language. People knew it a little bit to study, but it wasn't their lingua franca or whatever it's called. All of a sudden, everybody knows Hebrew. A 10-year-old picks up the Bible and reads it like a kid's magazine. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but this gave many students of Torah a thirst to study the Bible. I will just say that today there is a project called the 929 Project, which, if it did anything, it taught people that there are 929 chapters in the Hebrew Bible, and so it encourages people to study 1 chapter a day. So in about 3 years, you finish the entire Bible. And not only do you read the Bible, which I believe is the most important thing to do, read it and let it and engage with it directly without translations, which of course you have to know Hebrew in order to not deal with translations, without commentaries. But this site also has dozens of commentaries on it. And so that's another site. They have an English site also, 929. You could Google probably 929 English and you'll find the English site for it. And there was one man, probably with a few friends. His name is Rabbi Yoel bin Nun. He started learning the Bible, and he decided he would teach it also. And that exploded till today, that studying the Bible is a very accepted and very exciting thing for yeshiva students to do. There are conferences about the Bible, not in the academia, in the yeshivas. The one that I love attending every year is a full week from Sunday through Thursday, and every hour and a half is a slot. Every slot has 7 lectures to choose from, 4 slots a day, maybe 5. So that's about 35 less lectures a day to choose from. 5 days. So over 100 lectures that you have to choose from. It's like asking, who do you love more, mommy or daddy? So I can't choose, and so I go every year, and it's just beautiful hearing all these kinds of things. As far as